We Rotarians are always taught, I will use the word taught, to see as part of our role the need for us to mentor the Rotaractors. I think it's time we realized it's the other way around. It's Rotaractors like Nancy. It's Rotaractors like Nancy that need to be mentoring us. Thank you, Nancy, for that. I'd now like to introduce to you a personal friend and a work colleague of mine, Nathan. Nathan has combined a BSc in physiotherapy with an MBA, which has provided an interesting balance and combination. He's now the CEO of Sherburn Software in Malta, so he has replaced me in that role recently, earlier this year, to allow me time to organize the institute. He describes himself as an entrepreneur, a business coach, a CEO, a record-breaking athlete, a TEDx speaker, and a philanthropist. His extreme, and I do mean extreme, athletic feats, such as running 27 marathons in 27 EU countries in 27 consecutive days. Do you get that? Okay. And that wasn't the worst. Have molded his leadership style, shifting mindset, changes behaviors and performance in individuals and teams. Nathan is a sought-after speaker at corporate events, most recently, even yesterday afternoon. Nathan, welcome aboard.
Actually, since I've now got a reputation, I'm going to ask you to all stand up and stretch your legs a bit, because, it's getting a bit heavy. So stand up, just, get some circulation going. Gives you time to get on stage. Okay. That's a bit better. So have a seat, thank you. I know you're all dying for coffee and I'm in between, but let's settle down so we can get going and you can get out here on time. So the original theme was leadership development. However, I thought I'd want to make it a bit more inspirational, let's say. And I typically like to talk about leadership in the context of lighting people's fire, getting people engaged, switching them on. And what I want to try and share with you today is some experiences of having worked with top CEOs, Olympic athletes, and business leaders, and what they do in their lives to inspire their followers, whether they are philanthropists or working within nonprofit organizations or corporates. So a lot of the stuff that previous speakers have spoken about will be reflected in the things I'm going to talk about. But to put this into context, and also you mentioned about ourselves and where we fit in delivering good leadership, we start with self. Any thoughts to what that number represents? Okay, according to science, the average human being has 50,000 thoughts every single day. That's a lot going on in between your ears. And most of this is happening underneath the surface. It's working our subconscious. And the subconscious, ultimately, is what drives our behavior. We are wired throughout our life, through our experiences, by the connections that we make as we have experiences. And these experiences shape the way that we live and the way, ultimately, that we lead, if we take that role. But unfortunately, those 50,000 thoughts, whilst happening at the subconscious, are not balanced. Research also shows that 80% of these thoughts have a negative connotation. They are there to protect us from harm, and therefore they condition our behavior to be reticent, to step back, to be afraid, to say no, to not take risks. And so therefore our bias there means that our subconscious, if we let it take control of us, is going to always want to say no. Therefore, this binary brain of ours at the subconscious level is constantly trying to avoid pain or discomfort and seek reward and recognition. And so therefore, because the subconscious is affecting us, everything that we see in our external environment triggers. What does that photo or picture do to you? Can you sense an emotional reaction to it when you look at it? Now, on a rational level, it's just a picture on a slide. But yet, there is an emotional connection. And that's your subconscious screaming, disgust, or fear, or curiosity, depending on what file you have in your filing cabinet, in your brain, that you filled some time ago with the representation of a cockroach. And so everything you do, everything you experience is in that filing cabinet and is linked to some sort of emotional connection. And therefore, every time you retrieve that file, you bring out the emotion with it. And if we are trying to influence change, if we're trying to inspire people, we need to recognize that these things are happening and that we have very little control over because they're happening below the surface. We can't see them. One of the biggest fears that most of my clients have as CEOs is to stand up and speak in front of crowds. Now again, the logic says it's an opportunity to show off, it's an opportunity to convince, it's an opportunity to make my point and get my message across. But the subconscious is saying, you might trip up, you might be embarrassed, you might be judged. And this constant battle in our heads onto choosing what is logical and what is emotional, and it doesn't mean that one is better than the other, but there is this constant discomfort, this constant battle within us. And so, from the work of conversational intelligence and neuroscience, we see that for us to be able to join both the logical and the emotional, there is one fundamental ingredient, and that is trust. If we want to shift the way that we think, the way that our brain works from being our lizard brain, survival mode, fight or flight response type of behavior to one that is more creative and experimental and intuitive, we need to have both our subconscious calm and our intellect switched on. And trust is the ingredient. And its reason is because when you are feeling safe, your brain releases oxytocin. And oxytocin allows the connectivity of the front, middle, and rear parts of your brain to work in sync. And what does this have to do with leadership? Well, a lot. Because we are trying to influence the hearts and minds of our followers. Is that not what we do? And therefore, we need to understand how this mind works. And we need to understand what we can do to hack it. I had the fortune to be able to compete or take part in some of the world's most extreme challenges, including running across the Sahara Desert and, as John mentioned, the marathons. And for me, it was always, people ask me why I did this. And aside from the philanthropy and the fundraising, it was also always about a curiosity of how far the limits of human possibilities are. How far can I push myself physically, and how far can I go? And I realized, actually, that physically, I could go far less than mentally. Yeah, when you're running 27 marathons or 250 kilometers or 100-miler, your legs are fried after a marathon or two. What keeps you going on is your mental strength. How can that override the screaming voice that's coming from your leg saying, stop, go home, I've had enough, this is too painful? It's an override that allows us to control our subconscious. What's above the surface is what we need to work on, because that's something that's tangible and that we can work on. And developing the psychological skills and understanding how these things work allow us to be able to change then our subconscious, our biases, the things that keep us stuck, the inner voice that holds us back, the self-limiting beliefs for ourselves and for the people that we coach and that we work with within our groups. So these are some lessons I learned from pushing the limits and being out there. That experiencing discomfort actually gives you credibility. One of the reasons why I get asked to speak is not because of my leadership knowledge, but typically because I tell them I've run 27 marathons. But the point here is that if you can do something that's pushing the limits, that's out there, that people haven't done before, it inspires. And people want to hear your story. So as leaders, to be in the position you are in, you must have done something different. You must have done something different. And this is what you want to seek out in encouraging your followers to be able to find their thing that they can build credibility upon, their strength, not their weaknesses. You know, as coaches, we tend to work with people's weaknesses to help them improve. But actually, let's play to their strengths. Let's make their strengths super strengths. Having a clear purpose stops you quitting. When I was in pain or in discomfort, physically, emotionally, it's understanding why you're doing this that really allows you to keep pushing beyond what your subconscious is saying to stop. Pain is temporary. Yeah? Whether it's emotional pain or whether it's physical pain, typically it's an episode. And we need to think beyond that, because otherwise we make decisions in the wrong context. Curiosity is a powerful driver. For me, it's always been, how far can I go? What can I do differently? And as I said earlier, trust is essential for success. All the things I talk about, and I've mentioned here, wouldn't have happened without teams. Wouldn't have happened without the support of the organization. Wouldn't have happened without my wife and the kids and their support. You need to have people that you trust around you, because that gives you the confidence to be able to then go into the unknown. And ultimately, what I want to bring across is that the mindset is typically what defines the outcome. The way that you think conditions the result, rather than what you do. As strange as that sounds, more fundamental to your behavior is your mindset. And if you understand how your mindset works, what holds you back, and you unlock that, you tweak that, you hack that, you switch that, then you are going to go further. And again, this is the message we need to give to the people that are following us, is that their mindset is what they need to work on. The investment, their biggest asset, is what lies between their two ears. And that's where we need to work. For us, we coach through 4 dynamics, 4 elements that represent fire, F-I-R-E. And the first one is flow. Flow is that state of ultimate performance, that buzz, when you're on fire, when things are working. It's one of those things where you sit down, say, to write or to play music or to work on a project, and time flies. You've had those moments where you feel at your best, but often they're fleeting, because we have stresses that put pressure on us. We get distracted. Finding flow is important. Flow requires you to be on the edge. You need to get out of your comfort zone. Not by a lot. Science says 4%. If you can regularly, every single day of your life, get out of your comfort zone just a little bit, you build resilience. Your brain grows, literally. You create new connections, and this allows you to take on bigger and bigger tasks as your comfort zone widens. In leadership, we need to lead from the edge of that comfort zone. We need to make people feel uncomfortable. And by creating the right trust within our people, we can make people feel comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's our role as leaders. Whether you like what she did or not, she took people out of their comfort zone. And then she got respect. The second part is impact. It's part of your values. How do we make sure that our time, as limited as it is on this planet, is making a difference? Do we do things just because? Do we follow the process, the rota, the message, the way we're supposed to do things, the book? Or are we all about the actual difference we're making? What is our impact? And when we think about our actions, our behaviors, and the way we lead, what impact are we making on the mindset of the people that are following us? What impact through them are we making on our communities? What impact are we making through service? We need to put this at the forefront. And high performers, whether they are Olympic athletes or top CEOs, think about the difference they are making as fundamental to the way that they lead. I'm sure you've seen this picture many times over. The ability to heal, the ability to enrich someone's life, the ability to prolong someone's life, the ability to change someone's experience, the ability to bring out the potential of people is what impact means in leadership. The R is for relationships. Human beings are social organisms, and we depend on each other. one of the worst and most debilitating conditions is to be lonely. As human beings, we need to have relationships, and relationships that are enriching, that are contributing to the development of both parties. We are not here as leaders to impart knowledge and experience to others. We are also there as part of a relationship that gains and develops. We have a lot to learn from the people we lead. And this relationship means that it is two-way, it's give and take. And sometimes we need to let people lead for us. Sometimes we need to lead from behind. Sometimes we need to lift people up rather than charge from the front. Relationships is about understanding the strengths and weaknesses and the needs of the parties involved. But it also means that we need to accept roles with responsibility. I've made mistakes in the past of saying yes with eagerness to responsibilities I could not keep. And that is very, very negative on the people that depend on you. You need to be brave to be able to say no to responsibilities if you don't have the time or the knowledge or the capacity to be able to deliver. Are we all, as leaders, accepting roles because we're pushed in, or because it's expected, or because of our ego? Or are we accepting them because we take a sense of responsibility in the opportunity to be able to influence? And so, role modeling here for us as leaders is very important. People look up to leaders and copy. They copy their behavior, they copy the way they speak, they copy the way they act, they copy the way they behave. And we therefore must, at all times, when in front of people we are leading, behave as role models. No shortcuts. And how do we instill this role model behavior in the people that are following us, in our teams, in our clubs? We need to talk about this. We need to catch behavior. One of the things I always will do as a CEO is catch the wrong behaviors as early as possible. Because the wrong behaviors become the role model for the people that are naysayers, for the 10% that are against you. And so role modeling can be negative. You need to catch that out. Here an example of leading from behind. The person taking care of the safety is the person not leading, is the person at the back, is the B layer. Sometimes our roles are reversed. And we can provide that safety net to the people that want to join and be part of this organization because we can provide that safety net. They're experimenting, they're new, they're developing, but they have a lot to teach us by taking risk, more risk than we would take, as long as we can provide that safety net. Let people explore. And E in FIRE is about effort. But effort in the right direction. Effort isn't just about churn, it's not about hard work per se. It's about making sure that the effort is directed, and that it's directed towards excellence. Excellence doesn't necessarily have to be the funds you raise for your organization. It could also be the way people behave. It could also be the mindset. How do we excel? How do we become better versions of ourselves? Do we put effort in trying to improve ourselves continuously? Not just when people are looking. Yeah? Not just when people are looking. How can we find ways to be better tomorrow than we are today? And excellence requires us to measure. It requires us to understand the complexities of what we are dealing with in order to be able to focus. And effort then is focused in improvement. John tells me the slide has perhaps changed since, but the point here in that red circle is excellence is never ending. You keep at it. Continuous improvement, Kaizen. You're always striving to make things better. And effort is directed towards this. And because we have limited time on this planet, we focus. And some of the stuff that's holding us back or wasting our time, we discard. No matter how wealthy anyone can be, everybody has 24 hours in their day. That's what you get. Some of it you have to sleep, and the rest is to do what you choose. Where are you going to put that time and effort? So, for me, ultimately, these four typically represent a very important element of how we decide what type of leadership we choose to use. And that is what Bass and Ackerman talk about as transformational leadership. Transformational leadership is a combination of idealistic, striving for the best, inspirational, engaging people, individualized, making people feel that they are part of it, and intellectually stimulating. We want people to think. We don't want sheep. We're not shepherds. Yeah? Our goal is to inspire and get people to think. And so transformation, for me, is a good description of leadership because ultimately, true leadership is leadership that transforms. If your leadership is not transforming, then it's irrelevant. If your leadership is not changing the hearts and minds of the people that follow you, then what is your purpose? You want to look back and you want to say, thanks to my efforts and my convictions and my values and the things that I share with the people in this room, we've transformed. We've transformed other members, we've transformed our communities, we've transformed issues, we've transformed politics, we've transformed commerce, and this ultimately is what it's all about. How can we, as leaders, shape and transform in which way we feel is best, that lives our values, the external environment, rather than the external environment, as I said earlier, changing us. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Nathan, for that thought-provoking sharing of your ideas.